Oh, we got to change that music. It's just so hokey.
Good morning. Good morning.
Oh, every time it's always a surprise. Will it actually do it or not? Well, welcome back. Happy 2024 to whoever is out there listening right now, or wherever you are and wherever this finds you. We are doing this because we believe in the world that we're going to be creating together, and we are also believing that 2024 is going to be a great year for many reasons, a fulfilling year. Mm-hmm. So today is Thriving Thursday, and here at Getting to Unstuck, we on Thursdays we are focusing literally on what it looks like to thrive, and we have been working on together, the three of us, on what 2024 is going to look like for us at Whole Human Coaching and what kind of world we want to be a part of. And so today's conversation is around that. We're going to be talking today about the addiction to growth and change. So this may sound, if this is a new idea to you, if you've never heard those two words together, if you've always associated with growth and change as we need more, this is going to prove to be a conversation that is going to open up some possibilities of how you're going to see what is possible in days ahead. So, Carol and Colin, today let's get started. Let's talk about that first. Let's talk about the tension of trying to simplify your life while feeling the need to grow your business and your career, or even the crisis of reconciling expansion and finding meaning, or even about meeting expectations from the outside without compromising who you believe you are capable of becoming. I think that's a really big one. That's one that I find with our clients that we have a lot of discussion around. So, Colin, I would love to hear your thoughts first as we start out, helping us understand what exactly this is.
Sure. I mean, I guess the first thing to do would kind of identify how you know, right? How do you know that there is that tension? Because I think in our culture today, in our society, everything has become so normalized, right? That things like anxiety and depression and sort of a lost sense of meaning and all of the ancillary emotions that come around those things, not being able to set boundaries because you feel like you have to do more, and busy is a good thing. And there's all of these, I think, symptoms of that underlying tension that we have come to believe are okay. Right? It's like, oh, well, just pop a pill, right? Take something for anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. And I think what we're doing here today is saying, look, if you are feeling stuck and depressed and feeling that there's no meaning and there's a lot of anxiety in your life and tension and things like that, that's not normal, right? And we think that tension lies precisely in this dichotomy of, well, you're supposed to be growing, you're supposed to be busy, you're supposed to be doing, you're supposed to be having, versus what your body might be telling you, which is, slow down, let's be intentional, let's rethink things. So that's what we're talking about. And if you feel any of those things, you can probably relate to this, to those pain points, and they're worthy of discussion. So let's go.
And I think just to really prepare people today, this is not necessarily a comfortable conversation.
No.
What we've been talking about, and we just have these fascinating conversations as we're preparing for our conversation with you all, that tension is definitely in the air. And the fact that we recognize that there is something missing, something wrong, something out of kilter is what we begin with. And that's the sensation. That's like, oh, this just doesn't feel right, that we can tap into to get the message that is being delivered, not just to us as individuals, but the message that really needs to be delivered out into the world. Which is that continued expansion and growth, which is what we've been told from the very beginning of starting a business or joining an organization. That's what we need, is more, bigger, better, faster, isn't serving us or our planet.
And also, even if you think about it now, if you contextualize that within sort of the New Year's resolution thing and the whole industry around self-help and self-improvement and change and everything. We are living in this time where we're not told, we're not taught, we're not reinforced that where you are at is perfectly okay, and that you are okay, and that you don't need to be busy all of the time and stressed out, and you just don't have to live like this, I think. And it permeates your day, your work day, your career, your family, absolutely everything. So I'm glad we are addressing it.
Yeah. Christal, I was going to say, we dropped into our conversation yesterday something that we wanted to drop into the conversation today, which is degrowth.
Yeah.
What?
So sorry, go ahead.
Just lead us off. What is your understanding?
I've been thinking a lot about this, and I remember first hearing about degrowth in relationship to the climate crisis, and the idea of it not being the word is indicative of what it is, but it's not the whole thing, because we can tend to hear it and think that it's anti-growth in general, and it's like a reversal, but that's not really what it is. It's really about almost reimagining what's possible and what growth looks like in a way that is holistic, that's consistent, and that takes all systems and people into account, people and the planet into account. So when I think about degrowth and in the concept of what we've been talking about with us here at Whole Human Coaching, I think about I have a visual of there was, I don't know if you remember who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Do you remember?
Oh, Steve Covey.
Yeah. He talks about a picture if he was to put a container and there was rocks in it, and then there was like big rocks, and there's smaller rocks, and there's sand, and then there's water. Like it would be, you'd need all those things to fill it up, right? But once it's full, you can't put more things into it. So in order to, but if you were like looking at that and you're like, I want this to be purely water, then you would have to then start to think about what are the things that are getting in the way of filling this up with water. So you'd be pulling things out. It's not about less in terms of like taking away and leaving things in a deficit. It's about what is actually taking up the space in our world and in our lives and in our organizations that is worth keeping and growing. Yeah. That's part of how I would look at it. It's a much more organic, true to us way. So as an Indigenous woman, obviously that means to me the values of decolonization and how that looks in terms of thinking about systems that have been in place that we have just assumed are the only ways of doing things. Yes. And being open and honest with myself and asking myself, is this really all that there is? Is this system that I am playing into, is this the only way for things to get done? Right.
Well, yeah. So I think I would answer no, right? And all of those things I mentioned before are symptoms, and we have a lot of data, right, around mental health, around suicides, around anxiety, around pill popping, around obesity, around any number of factors, right, that are indicating to us that this isn't working for humanity, right? It's not working for anybody. And it's time to, I like the word reimagine. When I hear D something, I'm always like, oh, that means we have to go, I don't know. I'm not a D person. I'm a re person. So I like the idea of reimagination and rethinking and reclaiming that, and even that's what we do with Whole Human Coaching, this idea of rethink, reclaim, reimagine. Because it doesn't have to be this and it shouldn't.
But sometimes there needs to be a little dismantling before we can get to the reclaiming or the reimagining. And I think that's part of the idea of dropping this kind of a concept into a conversation, is that it is controversial. It is intended to be disruptive.
Mhm.
And so just as we have done here, we have this thought, well, what about me? I want my life to be the way I want it to be. I don't want to take away everything that I love. And it's not about that. It's about really considering what else, which is the reimagining.
Mhm.
But it needs to start with a way of disrupting the current path that we're on,
Yeah.
because that gets to
Oh,
be really a stuck place to be.
Mhm.
I think you're right. And do you think it's about kind of deconstructing the cult of the individual, right? The cult of the separated. What's the freaking word? Separateness. What you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
how
Separation. Mhm. Mhm.
this idea that I think certainly in my lifetime has evolved where we're all individuals, we're all different, we're all special, we can all have, we can all do, we can all be, and we've forgotten the idea, at least in our sort of modern Western white culture, we've forgotten what community means.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Connection.
Can I
Yeah.
pop in something and speak to that in and this is rather this is a kind of a tough thing to point out. This often happens, I think, in when people with sometimes in coaching too, where people are they're led to believe that whatever they want is the only thing, like that.
Mhm.
There's a cult around the well-being of self that is
Mm.
there's a healthy level where you reclaim yourself and your worth, and I agree, but then there's that line, and I think that's part of what we're speaking to, where you become so individualized and hyper focused on whatever you want is the only way, that then we just flip and turn back into the same systems that got us in trouble in the first place, right? It just has a different face on it. So um I think that what's interesting, Colin, about what you said about that the hyper individualized thing is like, yes, no one there's no denying our intrinsic worth as individuals, that and we are doing this because we believe that we can all thrive, but no one thrives in isolation, right? We
Mm.
thrive together, we thrive in connection. And that's also what degrowth is. That's the surprising part about degrowth. It's a call to connect as well.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes.
Connect authentically, right? Because I think we've been sold a bill of goods,
Yeah.
at least with social media over the last 20 years, that was community, right?
Right.
That
Mm.
was true connection. That
Yeah.
was
Right.
true sort of, um, yeah, community and connection. Sorry, I was
Yeah.
trying to find another word, but that's
Yeah.
it,
Right.
right? And that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But
You know,
so what's lifting the lid? What is it? And this conversation came to us kind of organically over the
Mhm.
last couple of days.
Mhm.
What do you think it is that's lifting the lid and allowing us to look with different eyes?
oh, so I think it's the same social media that is allowing us to see that, but it's also new forms of media and new forms of communication like
Mm.
podcasting.
Mm.
Mhm.
Because I think for the longest time, these communication channels were held in the hands of very few, individuals,
Mhm.
and mainstream media is still held in the hands
Yeah.
of very few people. But what's happened, and I think this is the wonderful thing about social media and where the internet has evolved, is that we're I can't speak today, even after 6 cups of coffee. We're all empowered now to have conversations amongst ourselves and permit almost like or allow a growing of a groundswell, right? Because
Mm.
I think a lot of the concepts that we're talking about kind of came top down over time,
Yeah.
and big companies and global companies and big business got the
Oh.
spotlight,
Yeah.
but I think what the top is coming off, or the lid is coming off, Carol,
Mhm.
because we as humans, I think, are waking up and going, oh, hold on, I don't have to be on that device all day.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
I was just talking to a friend who might come on the show soon, and we were saying you would never talk to somebody the way you see people talking on social media or on Twitter or Facebook, or
Yeah.
if they were there, you wouldn't actually talk to them like that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's that blessing and in power to the people, I guess, and communicating like we are.
Yeah, and thinking about that concept of a lid, I recall a story that I'm not sure whether it's true, but apparently if you put a bunch of fleas in a jar and they bounce up against the lid of the jar, that they learn that that's how far they can go. And even if you take the lid off the jar, they no longer will jump out because they've banged their heads against the lid so many times they've figured out that's their limit. So I think what we're inviting people to do through this kind of a conversation is take the lid off, peek over the edge, and wonder what else is out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea and the concept and really the practice of dismantling. Carol, you had said it earlier, because when you're dismantling, you're not recklessly like tearing things. I think of dismantling as like if you set up a tent, you're dismantling the tent and you're taking it down, right? It doesn't have to be this violent action. It means that you're mindfully taking things down and considering how it's going to be put back together.
Yeah.
So this is also a great time of year for us to be having this conversation, because the push around us is to think, what more are you going to do? What more are you going to accomplish? But the question I have for myself when I'm looking at in the mirror, and this is honest truth, here's in the circle of trust to whoever's watching this, is I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm saying, what are you going to start to dismantle in your life and in your thinking and in how you're showing up in the world that is more true to who you have the potential of becoming?
Right. And we have this amazing opportunity because as coaches, this is what the core competency, one of the key ones for coaching, is evoking awareness.
Yeah.
So one of the things that happens in our conversations and happens in our conversations with our clients is this opportunity to challenge thought.
Yeah.
To be able
Totally.
to consider what else, to question everything and keep what matters. We're not asking anybody to throw everything out.
Yeah.
It isn't destruction, like you said. It is deconstructing in a way that allows you to keep what's most important.
Yeah, deconstruct to reconstruct, right? You deconstruct what is not serving you, right? That is pressuring those pain points, and reconstruct a different, re-envisioned, reimagined way of being, way of working, a future. And I think what's going to happen is also even the metrics around this have to change, or are changing. They're probably already changing. I'm convinced of it, where, return on humanity, return on happiness, return on joy, return on people is going to be part of, or it should be hopefully part of the language going forward, and the vernacular and the activities that we do, because right now you just have to look around and not, you don't have to travel across the world to feel the pain, right? It's
happening
right,
in our neighborhoods.
right next door.
Present,
and that's important. I think I was just going to say, Christal, what just to tie back to something we spoke about a few sessions ago, the idea of incremental change, right? That a movement doesn't start, well, it can, I guess, but with a bang, like one degree, like small changes, small things. And I think awareness, like aware that you are okay to think that this is a mess, because it is.
Let's celebrate that, because it's a very good point. When we come to this and we look around, we go, whoa, holy crap, this is not what we want. It's okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let's breathe into that for a moment, and then let's consider, what are those incremental changes? Because the tsunami is destructive. But over time, the lapping of waves actually breaks rocks and carves new coastlines. If it's done slowly, it actually is incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think then to wrap up and honor our promise of a 20-minute conversation, I am curious, Carol or Colin, what is one question that you would ask someone who's listening to this and they're thinking, yeah, you know what, that is actually me. I am someone who's having these questions, and something feels like I'm not totally aligned, whatever kind of language they are capable of putting around it right now to describe it. What's one question you would want to leave them with to give them something to think about today? Because we're coaches after all, and we love good questions.
Go ahead, Carol. Carol first.
Well, I think the question is, who are you being in this moment? And it's a broad question, but if you look at it, who am I being when I'm parenting? Who am I being when I'm being a partner? Who am I being when I'm at the grocery store? And just begin to reflect inward, because that's where the initial conversation is going to take place. And it's also where some of that discomfort is going to be recognized, and be okay with that.
Cool.
Yeah. I guess mine's not a question. It's more like a first step. And that to me is because you said something isn't right earlier, Christal. So identify it. That's the thing I'd like to leave you with, is identify, right? Quantify, because so often, and you all know that when we work with people, they might have ideas in their head and they don't feel quite right, and they're feeling a little off, and something's not right, and there's this dis-ease, right? And so it's a really good place to start, is to identify it, journal it. I mean, I don't want to go woo-woo on you, just record it, get it down on paper, and understand all of the elements that are pushing you towards those pain points. Because otherwise it's just ethereal, right? And it's just like, something's not right. And then you carry that cortisol level elevated throughout the day and throughout life. And it doesn't have to be like that.
And our intention is to be with you. So we're opening this conversation at beginning of 2024 with the idea that it's going to grow. So if you want company along the path, we're here for you.
Yeah. And one of those ways is that you can head on over to wholehumancoaching.com, and you can find our Whole Human Wheel of Life, which is a handy tool that will take you probably 2 or 3 minutes to do. And it'll give you a bit of a score, not a bit. It will give you a score that is a reflection of just answer questions off the top of your head. Just the first thing that comes to you as you answer it. It'll give you a reflection of where things are, because we're going to be talking about all those elements of that actual whole human wheel of life over the next little while. And we look forward to sharing that conversation with you. So until we see you next time, if you've liked this conversation and you appreciate and enjoy this, why not leave us a review, like and subscribe. You can find us on YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts, and share us with your friends. And until then, we look forward to great days ahead. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
See you on Tuesday. Bye, guys.